Hi, everybody. It is good to be with you this evening. And the title of our lecture today is Foo Fighters, Aerial Oddities of World War II. I'm sure most of you have heard about these Foo Fighters, but in this presentation, what I want to do is I want to give you specific examples from our bomber pilots flying over Germany, flying over the European theater, flying over the Pacific theater. What did these pilots see? When did they see it? What was their assessment on exactly what was the cause of these Foo Fighter sightings? And I want to give these pilots their due diligence. I want to actually finally make these cases come alive through some really good illustrations here. So let's go ahead and start our presentation. And we're going to move on to this slide right here. This is the Rosetta Stone of where I got this information. So I want to give you the reference of where this information came from. Strange Company. This is a great book called Strange Company, Military Encounters with UFOs in World War II by Keith Chester. And what this gentleman did is he went into the National Archives. He pulled up the actual pilot reports and logbooks that had these Foo Fighter sightings. So this is just a really great reference. So if anyone wants to learn more about this, about these sightings, this is the reference where I got the information. Let's move on here. So this is Newcastle Sun, January 3rd, 1945. It says here, Foo Fighters are latest. Pilots flying over Germany at night report that strange balls of fire are following them around on their missions. They have christened these strange phenomenon Foo Fighters. Let's move on. Then I came across this article. This is the American Legion magazine, December 1945, the Foo Fighter mystery. Now, what was their assessment in this particular publication here? The Foo Fighters simply disappeared when Allied ground forces captured the area east of the Rhine. This was known to be the location of many German experimental stations. So this is interesting. They're stating that the Foo Fighter sightings kind of dissipated at the close of World War II. Is that a hint to what the source of this was? Let's move on here. Air and Space Magazine, August 2016. They had a little bit of a small article within this article about the P-61, and I just want to give you one little paragraph here. Reports kept coming in. The objects flew alongside aircraft at 200 miles an hour. They were red or orange or green. They appeared singly or with as many as 10 others in formation, and they often outmaneuvered the airplanes they were chasing. They never showed up on radar. So this is a clue, right? They're not showing up on radar. So it doesn't appear that we're talking about metallic orbs here, something made out of aluminum or steel, something solid. It's not showing up on radar. So is it something naturally occurring? It doesn't appear to be something solid. That's according to the report here. Let's move on. Berkshire Eagle, January 2nd, 1945. Balls of fire stalk U.S. night fighters in forays over German-held territory. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here and give you more detail. The balls of fire appear suddenly and accompany the planes for miles. They appear to be radio controlled from the ground and keep up with the planes flying 300 miles an hour, official intelligence reports reveal. So now they're saying that they're possibly radio controlled from the ground and they're traveling at 300 miles an hour. That's interesting because if you're beyond visual range and you have a Foo Fighter sighting for 20 minutes, that's way beyond visual range here. So someone had the technology or something had the technology to keep up with our bombers. It moves on here. The pilots of these night fighter squadron in operation since September 1943 find these fiery balls the weirdest thing that they yet encountered. They are convinced that the Foo Fighter is designed to be a psychological as well as a military weapon, although it is not the nature of the fireballs to attack planes. So now they're talking about psychological warfare operations. Is that another clue? Let's move on here. The majority of Foo Fighter sighting reports during World War II originated from the 415th Night Fighter Squadron. So this is their emblem. This is their official patch. So if you go to the National Archives and you request the files for the 415th Night Fighter Squadron, this is exactly the squadron you want to look at to get the logbooks from the bomber pilots. So let me give you our first example here. June 25th, 1942, over Holland. So you've got two RAF Wellington bombers encounter a copper-colored glowing orb. Now in the report, it said that the copper-colored glowing orb was off the left wing of the Wellington bomber. So the tail gunner and the nose gunner opened up fire on this thing. So not only did they have the 7mm rounds going into this, they had the tracer rounds. And I'm going to move on to the next slide here. And what it said in the report is it said whatever this Foo Fighter was, it was absorbing the tracer fire. It wasn't coming out the other end. And then it said in the report that the craft departed at a fantastic speed, leaving the Wellington bombers in the dust. So someone had the technology to do this 43, 44, 45 timeframe. Let's move on. August 5th, 1942, USS Helm in the Solomon Islands is with the naval fleet here. And what they encountered was a 90-foot long cigar-shaped craft, no visible means of propulsion, no wings, no ailerons, no socket head cap screws. They were not far away from this thing. So they opened up the 50 calibers, they opened up the big guns, and so here's my illustration that shows you that. I'm going to move on to the next slide here. And they opened up fire on this thing. And what it said, which I think is just incredible, I'm going to move on to the next slide here. The object departed at an estimated speed of 10,000 miles an hour. I don't think this case has really got a lot of coverage here, but I think it's important that we discuss these cases because they're historical. These Navy pilots, these bomber pilots, the people on these battleships and cruisers, they're not lying to us. These are war-hardened guys here. These reports are something we want to consider. American B-29 bombers encounter Foo Fighters over Tokyo on May 23rd, 1943. So again, European theater and also the Pacific theater. Let's move on. RAF Halifax bomber encounters a cylindrical-shaped object, UFO, with portholes over Holland on May 27, 1943. The object departed at several thousand miles an hour. So here you've got this Halifax bomber. It encounters this cylindrical-shaped UFO with portholes, and I've depicted it during the daytime so you can get a good view of this. Let me go to the next shot here. This is at nighttime, so this is real world here. So what are these things? This is no longer just an orb of glowing light. This is an actual craft here. Let's move on. May 1943, English Channel. We've got an RAF Lancaster bomber crew encounters a huge glowing orange orb just above the ocean, projecting a beam of light. So let me move on to the next slide, which is the actual real world nighttime shot of this thing. So something is just massive orange orb kind of sitting on the ocean here, and this bomber's flying right over. They got a real good look at this close-up report. April 1944, an RAF Lancaster bomber with the 622nd Squadron encounters 4 glowing orbs with stubby wings while returning from a mission over SN, Germany. So now we've got the RAF Lancaster bomber pilot seeing these as well. These guys are not lying to us. We really need to find out what's going on. What does the Pentagon know about these, and why won't they release the gun camera footage? What is so secret about this that they refuse to release this footage to all of us, A civilian witness saw 4 German V-1 buzz bombs flying over London in 1944. The witness described a clear, transparent, bubble-shaped object pacing the formation of flying bombs. So now we've got these unmanned V-1 flying bombs with a bubble-shaped, transparent craft following them as they're going over London. This is back in 1944. Who had the technology to build something like that, to fly it? Allied B-17 encounter Foo Fighters over Berlin in 1944. So like dozens and dozens of these B-17 pilots are reporting these over Berlin in 1944. On September 26, 1944, Allied B-29 bombers with the 20th Bomber Command reported a variety of aerial ordnance used against them during their mission over Ashan Manchuria. And this is what they're reporting here. The objects look like quote-unquote stovepipes, orange crates, balls and chains, and fire extinguishers. This is from the S2 report. So who's building craft that look like stovepipes and fire extinguishers? Now we're getting into something that's just incredible, but this is historical. This has been reported. A B-17 bomber from the 5th Air Force encountered a blue-colored ball of fire over Germany on October 29, 1944. This is unique. Let's go on to the next one. Here's another version that I put together that gives you an idea of what the B-17 pilot saw. Let's move on. So we've got the bomber pilots. Now let's move on to the P-47 fighter from the 415th Night Fighter Squadron encountered a gold-colored orb over Germany during December of 1944. Now let me hit you with the next version of this just to make this case come alive. And this is my other version. So what was this guy thinking when he encountered this off of his wing back in 1944? Just an incredible sighting. On March 13th, 1945, 4 P-61 Black Widow night fighters of the 414th Night Fighter Squadron encountered 100 balls of orange fire flying over Bologna, Italy. So what did the P-61 pilots see? Over 100 of these balls of orange fire? Incredible. Also want to mention, I'm going to move on to the next one here. This gives you a different version, but as of right now, there are only 1 P-61 Black Widow aircraft in flying at this time. It's the only one in the world. There's only one left. So this is basically the rarest warbird in the world. On the night of May 2nd, 1945, 9 B-24 Liberator bombers with the 11th Bombardment Group's 431st Squadron were flying over the Japanese island of Truk Atoll. The bomber crews observed 2 cherry red orbs. So again, now we're talking about Pacific Theater B-24 Liberator pilots. Now I want to switch gears here. What was hiding inside the hull of the German submarine U-234 when it was captured by the U.S. Navy on May 14th, 1945? What was going on within this submarine U-234? Some of you may have heard about this account. Just wanted to cover it here. Germany's last mission to Japan, the failed voyage of U-234. U-234 was converted into a large underwater freighter. Preliminary examination of U-234's manifest revealed that it contained aviation items of prime importance to the Army Air Corps. On board were 3 completely disassembled aircraft. So they had an Me-262, they had an Me-163, and an Me-309. The U-boat also contained an assortment of jet engines along with blueprints and documentation. The submarine also contained 550 kilograms of U-235, which is uranium oxide powder. Let's move on here. So here's my illustration of U.S. intelligence officers within the hull of this freighter submarine U-234 with these German aircraft jet engines. We've got the blueprints, we've got the rolled up drawings, we've got technical documents. Must have been incredible to see the inside of this when they actually had this under their jurisdiction. Now, this is the point where all these German secrets started pouring in here. Now, what kind of secrets are we talking about? American air technical intelligence teams discovered the Dornier DO-335 twin-engine push-pull fighter at the Dornier factory west of Munich in April-May 1945. So here we've got the push-pull 335, which is an incredible aircraft. It's at the Smithsonian Udvar Hazy Museum right now. Let's move on. American intelligence and U.S. Army forces discovered the Horton HO-229 V3 prototype at the Gotha factory near in April of 1945. So that's what they discovered near the Gotha factory, April 1945. the remains of the Horton 229, which I think is also incredible. Let's move on. On April 22nd, 1945, an air technical intelligence team led by General Donald Putt discovered multiple German aeronautic research laboratories complete with wind tunnels hidden in a forest near the outskirts of Braunschweig. So here's my illustration that shows you this air technical intelligence team coming over this group of camouflage buildings that had a wind tunnel in there. That they must have had test equipment. They probably had swept wing fighters, different prototypes. This has never even been talked about. I'm glad we found this. So let's move on to the next one here. American air technical intelligence teams worked under the code name Operation Lusty, Luftwaffe Science and Technology, headed by General Harold Watson. So this is the guy who is heading up this program, going out through Germany to these experimental research center, recovering the secret lost top secret German technology, shipping it back to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And that's talked about in this book called Watson's Wizards. Interesting book. It talks about how the information and technology was fielded back to American intelligence agencies. Let's move on here. 5 tons of top secret German documents pertaining to arms development and industrial mobilization were found in a salt mine 35 miles southwest of Gotha. So if you look here on my map, the star indicates where they got this. So 5 tons of documents, that's incredible. Let's move on to the next one. 14 tons of German documents were discovered in an abandoned iron mine in the remote village of Dornton. So here you can see on the map. So now we've got 14 tons of additional documentation. What did they find in these documents here? Now we move on to something called the Schornstein-Feger Project. Members of the CIOS, Combined Intelligence Objective Subcommittee, discovered German documents pertaining to the Schornstein-Feger Project. This program specifically dealt with radar camouflage and the development of materials absorbing electromagnetic and supersonic waves. Is that why the Foo Fighters could not be picked up by American military aircraft equipped with radar? So what were the Germans experimenting with, reducing the radar signature? Is that why we were so intent on recovering these tons of documents? What did they learn? And what was incorporated into our fighter technology here? We're talking about so long ago now. After an exhaustive search of German top secret documents, patents, blueprints, abandoned mines, and historical archives, American air technical intelligence teams could find no evidence that the Foo Fighters were of German origin. I found that very interesting. So here you've got these technical intelligence teams. They're going around to these research centers. They look through the blueprints, the patents, the prototypes. They didn't find anything that could connect the Foo Fighters to some type of German secret weapon. Just staying historically accurate here. Now we move on to this one. Blunder, how the US gave away Nazi super secrets to Russia. Is there a clue in this book? Kansas City Star, January 5th, 1986. They did kind of a report on this book. In May of 1945, as the Iron Curtain was about to be rung down across Europe, a U.S. Army combat officer naively and contrary to strictest U.S. directives handed over the nest egg of Nazi Germany's long-range military research to the Red Army. So somewhere along the line here, and there is reports that 22 boxcar fulls of documents and patents and drawings were given over to the Soviet Red Army. Is that how they got a leap ahead in technology on a number of different aircraft prototype designs? And what else were in those files that we have never seen before? I think that's something we should consider here. Now, during June of 1945, this is still within our book here, which I think is important, and this was in the book. 6 F-8F Hellcats stationed at the Naval Air Station in Pasco, Washington, encountered a gigantic pink-colored oval-shaped UFO hovering over Hansfield Atomic Reactor Plant. The pilots reported that the UFO was the size of 3 aircraft carriers and had vapor coming out of portholes along its side. This is 1945, and we've got these F-8F Hellcat pilots. These guys are not lying to us. Who had the technology to do this? I find these reports fascinating. I find them reliable because they're from bomber pilots, fighter pilots, some of the best witnesses that we've got here. On July 7th, 1945, a B-29 bomber encountered a red-colored glowing Foo Fighter over the Japanese city of Sasebo back in 1945. Let's move on here. During the summer of 1945, the U.S. Army transport ship Delarf encountered a 250-foot diameter dish-shaped craft emerging out of the ocean near the Aleutian island of Adak. So here's another one. Now we've got craft emerging from the ocean back in 1945. Why don't we hear more of these reliable reports from the Navy? Is that why the Navy is running the show and not the Air Force? Is because most of these sightings predate the formation of the United States Air Force? Is that why the Navy is driving all of this? Let's move on. On August of 1945, Captain William Mandel encountered a metallic cigar-shaped UFO while overlooking a cliff in the island of Okinawa. Now, we move on to something that's close to my heart here. On August 30th, 1945, Leonard Stringfield had a Foo Fighter sighting from inside a twin-engine C-46 while traveling from Ishima to Iwo Jima. So here we've got Leonard looking outside the window of the C-46, and he said he saw 3 white-colored orbs pacing the C-46. And I'm going to move on to the next slide here. Bringing his story to a close, he wrote, "The Foo Fighters simply disappeared when Allied ground forces captured the area east of the Rhine. This was known to be the location of many German experimental stations since VE Day. Our intelligence officers have put many such under guard. From them then, we hope to get valuable research information, including the solution to the Foo Fighter mystery, but it has not yet appeared. It may be successfully hidden for years to come, possibly forever. Meanwhile, the Foo Fighter mystery continues unsolved. The lights or balls of fire appeared and disappeared on the other side of the world, over Japan, and your guess as to what they were is just as good as mine, for nobody really knows." So this is back in reference to the American Legion magazine, 1945. So let's get back to the bottom line here. As of December 1945, Allied air intelligence had provided no answers regarding the unconventional aircraft phenomenon. Efforts to explain the sightings resulted in a quagmire of contradiction, speculation, and educated guesses. The ground-based air intelligence gathering missions had failed to find answers. Interrogation of prisoners of war, including high-ranking officers, engineers, and scientists, provided no answers. No enemy documentation was uncovered, validating secret projects to account for the sightings, and there was no indication that any unconventional aircraft were shot down or captured during the conflict. So that's really the bottom line. That's what we're left with here. We're left with unanswered questions about exactly what these Foo Fighters were. But 2 things we do know is, number 1, they were under intelligence control, and number 2, they did not show up on radar. So whatever these were, they weren't of a solid structure, or at the very least, they had an absolutely minimum radar cross signature that our Allied bomber pilots could not pick up on their radar. So that's what I